watching PSN Hockey on LeagueGaming.com, brought to you by the AHLPSN Media Group. And this is AHLPSN This Week. Hi, everyone. T-Sibs, along with Matty Lucci and Advanced Human. DeGraves and 6ix9ine are doing their own thing today with family. Yuck.
Boo.
Boo.
Family sucks. It just cuts into all this. Makes things not fun, I think.
You think responsibilities are important? Get out of here.
That'd be fine.
It's more important.
My parents used to kick me out in the morning and, called me back for dinner. They had no idea where I was half the time.
That's how
I turned
it's
out
supposed
fine.
to be.
Exactly.
Well,
yeah, well.
kind of fun.
Yeah. So it's three of us today. We're going to have on a guest a little bit later on. We're going to have Crocodile on. He's going to join us a little bit later on in the show to talk about his team and how the Devils have played well of late and how they're getting themselves back into the East and North race and making some noise there. We are now 2 weeks away from the end of the season, and now it's crunch time, guys. And, I think the strategy at this point, in my mind, you can mess around with lines for 4 or 5 weeks in the season, but at this point, you really have to know what you're trying to do with each line and with all your players. And I'm thinking advanced at this point. If you try and tweak lines, and move players around on different lines, I think you're doing more damage to your team than good.
Yes and no. So here's the thing about that. You have to remember the trade deadline was just last week. So it's not completely out of reason to think that maybe people are still moving someone around here or there, little tweaks, just to see what people can do together. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, yeah, if you don't have at least 2 lines built properly that can handle business, you're pretty much screwed. And if you're a team like mine, you just take on all the teams that you have to and let the GM scrub hunt to make himself feel better.
We'll talk about that a little later if we have time. Some of that talk today in the shout box. And you know what? That's a topic that I wanted to talk about if we have time. This whole idea of scrub hunting, and we'll get into it later. So, if you have any thoughts and ideas about the quote-unquote scrub hunting that we think players are doing, drop me a line here in the YouTube shout box, this YouTube discussion chat here, and let me know what you think about that. But before we get to any of that other stuff and the interview with Croc, let's just talk about what we're seeing so far after Week 7. The picture getting a little clearer, I think. We take a look at the Eastern Atlantic right now, and the Hershey Bears now up by 8 points on a 3-game winning streak, followed up by Springfield, Lehigh Valley, and Scranton Wilkes-Barre. So, and those teams, those last couple of teams there are a good 16 points behind Hershey. Springfield really, it seems right now, has the best shot maybe to catch them. But Hershey just doing well again in Week 7, 8-1-1. They lost to the Pens and the Marlies this week. The Marlies, I believe that was the overtime loss. They're averaging 11 shots against per game. So, again, we've talked about this a lot. For goaltending, for defense, if you let, the less amount of shots, right, obviously, it's going to be beneficial for your team. They're 24-6 in 1-goal games. So, they're doing pretty damn well, winning at least 2/3 of those 1-goal games, and that's a big difference. The Coupeton this week, left winger, went 3-0-1, 5 goals, 11 assists, a +10. He was second in scoring in Week 7, third in scoring. Bottleman, also on the scheduled a left winger, but he went 4-0 this week. Again, 5 goals, 11 assists, a +15. Mino, a 3-0 record this week, 7-7 and a +9. He was 6th in scoring. So in the top 6, Hershey having 3 of the top 6 scorers, and just a big push now by the Hershey Bears. And Bottle has played very well for a few weeks now, and he's a guy who does relatively well, but has seemed to up his game recently and has really made a big difference for Hershey and the push that they're making right now in the playoffs.
Yeah, they got a good run going, and they're in the right division to do it. This is the first time I think we've seen all season that a team has actually started to pull away. I'm kind of surprised that Springfield isn't doing as well as I thought. 6-3 is still a good week last week, but I kind of thought they'd be more of an 8-1, maybe 7-2 team just because of who's on there, and they're a good team. But the Hershey Bears are really chugging along for some reason, and I have the privilege of playing them next week, so we'll see how I'll be able to see firsthand exactly what's going on there. But throughout the season, they were kind of up and down. Right. They had some 2-7 weeks. They had some. I think they maybe even had a 1-8 week, or maybe it was a 3-6 week. There was 2 or 3 weeks where they kind of struggled almost in a row, and then they kind of came back and then they just kind of hit their peak. But yeah, Bottleman really stepped up his games, played well. And you kind of have to, and like B Braves, I know he played goalie back in the day, but he's playing forward now, and if they think that he's someone that can really help them out, then obviously they're keeping him on the team. Goalies are good, so you'll see what they'll do. I don't know if they'll be a really big. I can't picture them beating Toronto or even the Americans if it really came down to it in the playoffs. But I've been wrong before. I was wrong about the Barracuda, so you never know.
And Springfield, again, was mentioned 8 points back right now, and still trying to keep pace if they can. They went 6-3 this week, not a bad week. They beat the Pens 3-1. They lost to Hershey 4-1 this week. So those are again, you're going to start playing the teams in your same division. You're getting down to the end of the season, and if you don't win or if you lose by several goals, that's almost, you almost have to wonder, okay, what are we going to do to be able to compete with these guys? Of course, some guys may play it differently. They may throw a lesser line out there to try and give the first place teams some confidence against them, and then those 7-game series can really be interesting how they match up. But the Thunderbirds getting scoring from Studer 11 with a 3-0 record this week, 3 goals, 4 assists. Inception on the right D. Went 3-0 and a +5 this week, and Red Raider continues to play well in net, 4-1, 85% save percentage, 1.57 goals against. So the Thunderbirds getting some good defense, some good goaltending, maybe not a ton of offense just yet. And if they get a little bit of that going, they could wind up being an issue for Hershey. And we mentioned the Pens; they went 5-3-1 this week. They're in 4th place. But they're a team that has improved themselves over the last couple of weeks with moves, and they've gotten some good production out of their players. Mr. Tryhard is still playing incredibly well on right wing. 3-0, 7 goals, 5 assists, a +8. JB Turf on right D went 2-1 with a +3 this week. They had wins against Hershey and against Lehigh Valley, so the Pens in 4th place, 7 points ahead of Bridgeport, as you see. And then you've got Hartford, who is still in it, 10 points out, but it's going to be a struggle. And then Providence is out of this, and Charlotte is going to need a miracle and probably not really in this.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, though, from watching the Wolfpack at the beginning of the season when they were really struggling to now, they haven't gotten substantially worse. They may have even improved a bit. They stayed middle of the pack, which is, I guess, it's not the hardest thing to do when Providence is in your division, but they battled with the Checkers for a while, and they've kind of spaced themselves out now and gotten closer to Bridgeport. So, good on them for keeping their people playing and being able to stick it out. But Bridgeport, I don't like them. I never have. I don't know why.
Maddie, you have any input on this Eastern Atlantic?
He just doesn't like them.
I just don't like them.
No,
I want to know why you don't like them. Why?
I don't know. I just don't like them. I don't. there's some nice people in there. Then there's other people in there that aren't as great of people, but they're still decent people. I never liked the Sound Tigers. Never. I don't know what it is about them. Don't like them. Corbs, I miss you. But yeah,
Aw.
fuck those guys.
No, as we see right here, like Hershey's on top.
Mm-hmm.
Springfield's gonna probably battle it out, but I think Hershey's taking a pretty long stretch, and they're gonna stay pretty much on top. It's really where the battle is gonna begin is really against Lehigh Valley Phantoms and the Penguins that are gonna battle it out to maybe try to get to the second place in that division.
Mm-hmm.
When we're looking here, Bridgeport Sound Tigers, like you said, I think they have a push. I think they have definitely a chance, and so does Hartford. I mean, if they have a good week, anything that can turn it around very quickly. I mean, this is the last push to get to the playoffs, so there's going to be a few weeks left. And what happens in this case is you have to get your team together and build up that chemistry and the work to go through it to get that battles down. It's that time of year right now. People have to focus and say, hey, you know what? We're going to have to get the lines together and let's go.
It's crunch time.
I think it's crunch time. It is definitely crunch time. It's about that time to make it happen. So, I think they can have a chance. Obviously, the Checkers, they're going to need a prayer. They're going to have to pray. They're going to have to do their prayers every time, after every meal. They're going to have to do that. And at the end of the night as well. But there's a slim chance. I don't think they can have they have the firepower to make it, but I think there is a possibility. I mean, when we're looking at it though, Hershey's going to stay on top. The four top teams are probably going to stick around. I think it's really with Bridgeport and Hartford that are going to. I think they have the chance to come back here.
Hartford can't go 5-4 and hope to make the playoffs as they did this week.
No.
They had a couple of good games, and we'll talk a little bit about a couple of their players, but just not quite putting it together every week. A string of wins. They're going to need a 7-2, an 8-1 kind of week to really get back into this and have a prayer.
And they only had one of those, if I remember correctly. I think they had an 8-1. It was maybe week 4, I believe, or week 3 or week 4. I believe they had that big week, and other than that, they've just been pretty mediocre. But some teams are just mediocre. That's what there's bad teams, there's mediocre teams, there's good teams. You're a mediocre.
I do have a suggestion though. I do have a suggestion. I mean, Bon Jovi made a great song, and that it's living on a prayer. That's what you guys are gonna have to put in the locker room before your games.
Yeah,
there you go.
Have some weird lucky traditions or some some
whatever
things,
works.
some rituals. Yeah,
exactly. Whatever works.
Yeah, Hartford started the week with 4 straight wins. They beat the Pens, and they beat Springfield in the first 4 games, and then they wound up going on a 4-game losing streak before finally shutting out Lehigh Valley in their last game on Wednesday. So that kind of streakiness is not going to get you into the playoffs. So Hartford's going to need a miracle. Bridgeport really probably has more of the possibility, even though it's only a 3-point difference. But again, we're down to 2 weeks here, and there's only so many more points left on the board that you can get. And Hartford's going to need a lot of good,
all of them.
Yeah, they're going to need all of them pretty much to keep themselves in it. Let's jump over to the Eastern North and talk about Rochester, still holding on to a 2-point lead over Toronto. As you see, the Marlies are on a 4-game winning streak. Binghamton played incredibly well, and we'll talk about them a little bit later on with Croc. Syracuse, as you see, 6-game winning streak right now. And then you've got Utica, who have flattened out, have dropped 5 in a row now. And then Laval and Belleville bringing up the rear. Rochester, 5-3-1 this week. They lost to the Marlies, an 8-3 game, and lost to the Devils in double overtime, but still getting good production out of You Can't Stop Crosby. 2 goals, 4 assists, a +7. J. Rick also went undefeated, 3-3. Duff with a 3-0 record, and that line of Crosby, J. Rick, and Duff beat Utica, Lehigh Valley, and the Sens this week. So not a lot of competition that they were going up against, quite honestly.
Wow, I was in that game.
Yeah, well, like I said, not a lot of competition. in those games. So that could be part of it. D-Mac, 77-19 on lefty. 3-0 this week, 1 goal, 4 assists, a +7. He's been consistently solid back there on the defensive line, and again has another good week. Rochester, I thought was going to pull away more from Toronto. They haven't done it yet, and again, I think Six made a lot of good moves. I gotta feel like it's still going to take a week or two for all that to really gel properly.
Yeah, he's busy with his kids and stuff, so it's possible that someone else is pulling the strings there, or maybe he's doing everything from his phone and no one really knows what's going on.
No, I think I think he has total control of what's going on.
He's built a good team though. He's built a good team. I hope his kid strikes out all game.
Well, I tell you, yeah. Advance was wishing horrible things on his kid's game today. So just Advance.
No injuries.
No injuries. Just that he
chose.
Just that he wouldn't touch the ball.
And responsibility. Yeah, he chose family responsibility over the show. So I just hope that his son will strike out all game.
Strike one, strike two. You're out of here.
There's 3 strikes, Matty. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah, I know,
baseball.
but the third one doesn't count. It's
I see.
You're out.
Guy.
I see.
Listen, he doesn't have a baseball team. It's not his fault.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let's talk about
not anymore.
Let's talk about the Marlies. We mentioned 4-game winning streak. They beat Rochester, beat Hershey this week, but they were shut out by the Devils and Lehigh Valley. So again, the Marlies were consistent the first few weeks. They've been up and down the last several weeks. Again, a lot of movement on a team that was doing well, and I still feel like chemistry is going to be a problem when you do that. And the Marlies are kind of feeling that, but they're still getting great production out of the line of Solticole, Deer Hunter, and Jay Morris. These guys have been really solid all year. They beat Rochester in that 8-3 game, and they're all a +6 this week. Sol is 12th in scoring in Week 7 with 6 goals and 6 assists. So Toronto's got a lot of talent. Can they consistently win? And then can they also, again, in the last couple of weeks, get that chemistry going so that, each and every line that goes out there has a solid shot to win?
I think they do. I played that line. That was the line that I played against, and they're a good line. They do have to play a tough division this week, as this whole conference does. And they got to play the Moose, and they got to play the Wild, and they got to play the Wolves and the Admirals, and this is going to be a really good test of who they can go up against and who they can't. But having said that, also you have to also keep in mind who is playing those games. You have to see if those guys are putting out their top lines as well. If they are putting out their top lines, and the Marlies are also putting out their top lines, and you see that they're just not keeping up. Maybe they're losing those games by more of a margin than maybe what you'd expect. That might say something about what's going to happen in the playoffs.
All right. Binghamton, we're going to talk, like I said, to Croc later on. They beat Toronto and Rochester this week.
7-2.
7-2 for them. They had 1-goal losses to the Pens and to the Crunch. They are 15-3 in the last 2 weeks. It's game time. 8th in scoring this past week with 7 goals and 6 assists, a +7. Bennett 96 also went 3-0 this week. 6 goals, 6 assists, a +9. Nice week for Bennett. Fisherswa in net 3-0, 92% save percentage, .67 goals against, and a shutout. Croc also had a shutout. He went 4-2, 86.3%, 1.65 goals against. So everything firing well for the Binghamton Devils. And again, when you've got goaltending that's playing that well, and you're getting good offense, if you get decent defense, you're going to have 3 sets of lines and 2 goaltenders who are not going to give you a break. And I think their division's going to struggle to try and catch up to these guys, just because they are, they're firing at the right time right now, and everyone's playing well on this team.
Yeah, and you got to look at this. They had only 13 goals against all week. Like, that doesn't seem like a lot, but that, it's 13 goals. But if you understand that's only 9 games. Yeah. In 9 games, there's 13 goals against. That's phenomenal. Their shot differential was plus 51. Penalty killing was 75%, which is middle of the pack, kind of mediocre, but it's okay. But the time on attack was also huge, 27 over. Like they dominated this week. I don't know how they did it. I don't know who was fully responsible. It was the goalie or the defense who was really pushing it. But that is an outstanding stat. They only had 13 goals against.
I just wanted to give a shout out to Fishy Swall. I call him chicken legs. Chicken legs. Absolutely a gorgeous stats for that this week, man. Good. I'm not surprised. I mean, I've played with Fishy for several seasons now, and I'm proud of you, buddy. Keep on going. Keep on chugging. And when we're looking at Syracuse, I just wanted to say in terms of Syracuse, King Icon, since he took him over, they went 8-1 now.
I miss you, King Icon.
King Icons, the iconic one. And even when they took the loss, they had 2 ECUs forwards. So in terms when you're looking at it for the Crunch, they had a hell of a week, a big turnaround. And look at that. They just made themselves in a nice little playoff spot, and they're securing it in this case because the comments are only, they're way behind with 58 points right now, right?
Yeah. Little thing about King Icon, he was first put on the Senators, on Ottawa Senators in the AHL, and we were all looking at his stats and like, who is this guy? He looks like a CHLer. Like, why is he up here? It doesn't make sense. Then he started playing really well up there, got a lot of points. Then he got brought down to us, and again, he was doing well, and I played with him a couple of times, and I played with him not just in LG, but outside of LG. And he's actually a really good player. And I kind of felt bad that I thought he was shit at the beginning of the season, and now that he's over there and he's still doing really well. Maybe he did belong in the NHL after all. I just didn't know at the time. I'd never heard of him before. So good on you, bud.
Syracuse, as Maddie said, 8-1 this week, 6-game winning streak. They've won 12 out of the last 14. They beat the Marlies, Americans, and Devils this week. J4 going 3-0, 3 goals, 6 assists, a +3. Axel, who is in the YouTube message box there, saying, don't forget about me. Well, I had every intention of talking about you, my friend. 3-0 this week, 3 goals, 5 assists, and a +4. Inbound 24, also 3-0, 4 goals, 3 assists, and a +4. This is the line that beat Utica, Lehigh Valley, and I'm sorry, I got that wrong there. But this line, had some good wins this week and played well. MGML, who's been around for a long time, 3-0 this week, a +5 on defense on left D. Joja 3-0, 88.1% save percentage, 1.54 goals against, and a shutout. And Great Zilla, who came up this year in the AHL, good guy, good player, in net for Syracuse, 5-1 this week, 84.2 save percentage and a 2 goals against. And so, again, another team that seemingly has everything going well. Their defense very productive, doing what they need to do on that end, getting good production out of their forwards. And then, again, 2 goaltenders who just had very good weeks. And going 8-1 is keeping Syracuse in this 1 point behind Binghamton. And Utica and Laval and Belleville all, within a point of each other, but 15 points, 16 points back of Syracuse. And again, 2 weeks left to go. I just think it's just way too much. I think the top 4 teams are locked in here. Whether or not Binghamton and Syracuse swap positions, I think we'll see how that is. But to me, Utica, Laval, Belleville, they're kind of out of it at this point.
You have to know that there's 18 games left. Okay, that's 36 points.
Sure.
Even those bottom teams, if they have 36 points, you're looking at maybe 90. If it's Utica, you're looking at 94, right? So you'd have to have the rest of the guys, basically not win for the rest of the season for them to even have a chance, and they'd have to go perfect, and I doubt that's going to happen. So I think the final 3 teams there, including my own, is pretty much shit on Creek. Is that what I'm saying? Shit Creek? Up shit creek? Yeah, they're up shit creek.
Shit. Yeah, they're up shit creek, definitely.
They're up shit creek.
Unfortunately, but yeah, I agree with you guys. I mean, Rochester's on top. It's going to be a battle with Toronto and Rochester. Binghamton has maybe a chance to come through with Syracuse. That I mean, they're going to battle it out for third and fourth. I think they're going to probably stick around there. But who knows? With the crunch, having an 8-1, they might push up and maybe get up to the third spot. But I think in a sense that Rochester and the Marlies are going to battle out for second. Binghamton, Syracuse, third and fourth. And unfortunately for the Comets, the Rockets, and the Senators, it's going to be hard rest of the season.
Well, let's go head over to the Western Central, and we've got Iowa still up on Manitoba. 1 point difference there. Chicago 10 points back of Manitoba, and Milwaukee 9 back of them. Rockford 9 points out of that last playoff spot. Then you've got Colorado, Grand Rapids with 55 and 54 points. Grand Rapids on a 7-game losing streak. And then Cleveland, not technically out of it yet, but close to being out of it. I believe that's the case. So, we got 38 points. I guess they are technically out of it now. But the site's not showing it that way. So Iowa and Manitoba battling hard in this one. Then you've got another tier of Chicago and Milwaukee. And Iowa going 8-0-1, 5-game winning streak. They've won 15 out of 18. Beat the Wolves, Manitoba, and Ontario this week. Matt the Cool Cat, 5 goals, 7 assists for Zerk. 2 goals, 10 assists, and a +1. C Mike 17 on left D, 3-0 this week, 4 goals, 7 assists, a +1 on giveaway takeaways. And then we get to the goaltending. Leafs 1791, 5-0 this week. 82.4 goals against, save percentage, 2.4 goals against. And Jones, who's still playing well this year, 3-0-1, 87.8 save percentage, 1.32 goals against, and a shutout. So Iowa still, again, in what a lot of people believe is the toughest division, still staying on top. Not by much, though. Manitoba and Iowa are really battling it hard, with the Moose going 5-3-1 this week, so they lost some ground. They lost to Iowa, as we mentioned. Also lost to Chicago, Ontario, and Milwaukee this week. Rocky Grat, 2 goals, 6 assists, and a +6. Snipester, 16, 2-0 this week. 2 goals, 5 assists, a +6. Hockey Brady on right D with 3 assists and a +6. And Arch Mangus, 3-0 this week. 90.6 save percentage, 1.03 goals against for Manitoba. So, 5-3-1, not a bad week, but when I was going 8-0-1, incredibly tough to try and keep pace with them when they're playing like that.
And Iowa, just a little stat, Iowa has, in the top 10 of all point getters, they got 4 guys, which is more than any other team. So you can see that they're obviously that one line is, but right, their second line also has people in there. So they're a good team. They have depth. That's something that end up winning championships.
They're hard to play against. I mean, I played them 3-4 times this week, and they just get down deep in the zone. And Tommy goes on the right hand side and does the dangles right beside the net, and they just cause so many penalties.
Yeah,
and it's like I had warned the guys I was playing in a drop, and I'm like, guys, these are really good players. Watch out, watch your sticks.
Yeah,
and they were just getting the penalties, and they'll just drag it. It's hard to play against them. It's just at that level, that they're just going to cause you penalties and make you pay for them every single time.
Yeah.
Every single time. They have set up plays too that you could see, that I've noticed as well, that that they're gonna do, and it's really nice to watch them. They're definitely a hard team to play against. Oh,
they're fun to watch.
Yeah, there's some guys.
Definitely fun to watch.
There were some guys yesterday. There were some guys yesterday who were playing drops against Tommy and
Beast.
And Beast. I think it was more about Beast, right? Where they were saying, "Oh, he backs into everything," and it's something with the game where he's taking advantage of it. And I hate to see glitches, that the game hasn't gotten out, but what are you going to do? If it's something that can work, then it is what it is.
That's not a glitch. Skating backwards is not a glitch. No. So don't poke him. If he's skating behind,
Don't
if he's
hit him.
skating backwards,
Yeah.
don't poke him, hit him. The second you bump him from behind, he basically falls and he loses the puck. That's
it.
It's
Well-
not that hard. I played a guy this week. I'm not gonna say who it was, but I was up against him center versus center, and he likes doing that, and I pretty much closed him down. So it's just you have to know what to do when they're doing that. It's not a glitch.
It's
he's
positioning
skating
too,
backwards,
right? It's positioning. If you also try and keep him to the outside, and don't try and overplay that player and keep him in front of you. I mean, look, they're going to get by you once in a while, but if you do the right thing on defense, you keep them in front of you, they're going to have to pass the puck. It's that simple.
Yeah, and he's got to turn around sometime.
Right.
So if you're there, you're going to catch him. So that's kind of ridiculous if someone's going to call that a glitch. That's just stupid.
You know how it is. People have an excuse, right?
But it's still a very hard team to play against. What? Whoa.
No,
I never said it was a glitch. Whoa, on the contrary, I played against them. I was not gonna lie on it. They were dominated. We didn't win one game against them, but it was just looking at their play and how they were working. It's just like you got to keep your stick away, because every time you're gonna put that stick in poke check, they're looking for that.
Right.
They're looking for that. Put your stick. He's gonna dangle, and boom, you get a tripping call.
Yeah,
that's what their whole based on in terms of holding up the puck, trying to get you guys to do the wrong move, and they'll make you count every time they're going to get a power play goal.
And their power plays last week were 37%, so not the best in the league, but definitely not the worst. They're close to the top. So that's not a bad strategy if you can score.
Let's just quickly wrap up the West Central. Just talk about Chicago quickly. 5-3-1 this week. As you see, they're still in third place, firmly in third place right now on a 3-game winning streak. Mr. Don, 4 goals, 8 assists, a +8 again, continuing to have a good season. Gumba, 5-5 and +7. Game Rindo on left D went 3-0 this week with a +6. And Glex, again on left D, went 3-0, no scoring, but a +7. And again, to me, that's what you want to see out of your defense. You don't need a lot of scoring. We just need you to play D and come out well on the plus side. You've done your job. And Chicago at 5-3-1 again, just keeping pace. And really, they don't have any need to press at this point. They're at least 18 points up on Rockford. So that's the team they got to worry about right now. Let's move over to the Western Pacific and take a look there as we try and wrap this up here quickly. As you know, Ontario still on top. They went 4-4-1 this week. Losses to the Condors, Rampage, and Tucson, a hot Tucson team. We'll talk about them in a minute. Raj Rangers, 4 goals, 4 assists. Leet Ricks are had a nice week. 2 in 1 week, +5, a goal and 3 assists. String King on left D. Went 2-1, +5. IC before UC and net went 2-1, 84.2 save percentage, 2 goals against. But it was San Antonio going 7-1-1, 6-game winning streak. They're first in the power rankings this week. They beat Ontario and San Jose. They lost to Iowa. So again, facing a solid Iowa team in the Western Central and lost that game. So they're going to have to figure out how they're going to deal with that should they get past everybody else in the West. Perfect Skills, 3-0, 11 goals, 3 assists, a +13 for him. Perry, 1978, 4 goals, 8 assists, a +11. Kales, 9, 6 goals, 6 assists, +11. On defense, Full Throttle and Cowboy Fan both went 3-0 this week. Scape, in net, he went 3-0, .68 goals against, 91 save percentage, and New Jersey's very own solid goaltender, and finally getting some good play this week. 4-0-1, 86.4 save percentage, and a 1.54 goals against. So San Antonio making a good run, and now they are 6 points back of Ontario, and right now 14 points up on Bakersfield, who is trying to keep pace at this point. San Jose falling back a little bit, and now they've got Tucson right on their heels, a point back. The Roadrunners, a 3-game winning streak. They were 6th in the power rankings, 8-1 this week. They beat the CUDA, the Wolves, and Ontario. They lost to the Rampage. Hockey Girl and Tommy, all I do is win. A couple of guys, a couple of people, since one of them isn't a guy, that I played with on Hershey, and they are back on this team and playing well. Both went 3-0 this week. Hockey Girl, 5 goals, 6 assists, a +9. Tommy with 4 goals, 3 assists, and a +5. Boss Ross on defense went 3-0. First Nation went 2-0. And No Peace here went 5-0 in net, 83.3 save percentage, 1.88 goals against. And Tucson making a run now for that last playoff spot. We thought San Jose might have a pretty solid team and was up there for a good part of the season. Now they're really struggling to stay in there. And you've got Texas now 5 points back of San Jose for that last spot. And the Gulls are 8 points. So it's not that far-fetched that one of those teams could wind up in the top 4 as well. That last spot, maybe even the last 2 spots, could be really interesting for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'd say it's a bit of a race for the Stars, and the Gulls and the Eagles and the Griffins. You know, those teams are going to have a bit more trouble, but the Roadrunners and the Ice Hogs are definitely more contenders. And you know, the CUDA, I thought they were going to do well this season. They did trade away a lot of their big components, or they just lost them to bidding or whatever. But they're 4-4. I think this week 4-4-1 or something like that. And you know, they did okay. They're still that's a middle of the pack type of numbers. 69 is a middle of the pack type of stat. So you know, it is what it is. They might slip in the bubble, or be outside the bubble. You know, it's one of those. It might happen, it might not. But if it does, they'll be playing a good team and probably get knocked out. So I wish you guys the best, but it's probably not going to happen.
Thanks, bud.
Nice. What are you seeing at this point, Manny?
Well, I mean, it's going to be a tough run. Like you said, the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, even the 7th team, it's all in the same. You know, we're talking about about 10 points differential. So it's going to be a battle of the ages right now for the Western Pacific for all the top seeds, except the Reign, which always is on top, and they're pushing away, as well as the Rampage, right? Mm-hmm. So in this type of sense, we're just gonna have to buckle up for my team as Barracuda. We're gonna have to buckle up and start getting those wins stretched out. And 4-4-1 will not cut it. It's not gonna be. We're gonna need a bigger week and have more wins than losses, of course. And it's gonna be Tucson with having that kind of week is something to worry about, because when a team starts having a winning streak, that's what you have to start worrying. They're getting heated up, and they have those wins behind them, and they have the ball rolling. So we're going to have to watch out for everybody under there, the Roadrunners, the Texas Stars, the Gulls. It's all teams to be watched for. It's going to be a battle of the ages, like I said. It's going to be a lot of games are going to be going on in this week, so it's going to be something hard to see that we're going to have to buckle up and make sure to wear the safety belt and go full-fledged.
What division is your team playing this week?
I haven't had the chance to check. Hold on a second. Let me verify that.
I know the Eastern North has the Western Central. Oh, so the Western Pacific probably has the Eastern Atlantic, unless they're just interdivisional.
This week we're playing the Phantoms, Thunderbirds, Hartford, Providence.
You got the Eastern Atlantic. Yeah. So that'll be interesting too to see that. That'll be, because they're a pretty tight knit division as well. I know I got to play the Bears at some point this week, but that'll be interesting to see what you guys can do. If you guys can hold your own against that division, which is I'd probably call the second best division in the league. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean that from top teams. I just mean throughout that division, they're very tight. Mm-hmm. I think that'll really say a lot about what the CUDA can do and what the Roadrunners can do, and maybe even the Stars, but they're kind of falling off a bit. But that's what happens sometimes.
We're gonna go back.
That's how the cookie crumbles.
Go ahead. Yeah.
That's how the cookie crumbles.
That's how the cookie crumbles.
We're gonna go back and talk about the Eastern North now, Maddie. If you can stop talking about cookies at this point, you're getting me hungry. I'm hungry. It's that time of day. doesn't take much, really, quite honestly.
Nope.
Hey,
I know.
Nope.
we've got from the Eastern North team, the Binghamton Devils, who we mentioned went 7-2 this week. We've got one of their goaltenders, Crocodile, who is on now, joining us. And Croc, thanks for being here. You guys had a nice week, and you are now starting to really try and solidify either the third or fourth spot. How do you guys feel about the next couple of weeks? Are you concerned about anything in particular, or do you feel like you're on the right track at this point?
Hey guys, once again, just thanks for having me on the show. Yeah, I mean, I think honestly we have a shot at the division. I think that's the way that we're looking at things moving into the next couple of weeks, right before playoffs. But for this week, we face the Eastern North, which I'm sure we're going to get into later. We Western Central this week. So we face Iowa, we face Manitoba, we face all of those good teams. So that's something that we are definitely taking into account. This is going to be a big week for us in terms of the standings. I mean, the rest of our division obviously faces them as well, but if we have a good showing this week, then we have the possibility to climb, right? Like you guys had mentioned earlier on, the Comets have kind of fallen off. Same with the Rocket and the Senators. So it's really just a race with Syracuse right now, and whoever isn't going to face the top team in the division. But I know we've closed a lot of space down on the Marlies and Americans the past couple of weeks. So I think we're just continuing to look at doing that.
Do you, as a team that's really in the hunt and really chasing for points right now, when you have to play a division like this and you have to play these hard teams, do you kind of do you hope maybe going 6-3 and getting the most points you can get out of it and throw your third line out against the really good teams? Or are you going to try to go head on with them and see if maybe you can steal a couple and then hope that your team has enough depth to take on the middle of the pack and lower end teams?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. Gally is really the evil genius that puts the lines together every week. We've trusted him with it all year, and he's gotten us to where we are now in terms of line matching. I mean, me personally, I trust pretty much all of our lines against pretty much any team at this point. That's kind of how we've done it the last few weeks. With goaltending specifically, since that is my position, the last couple of weeks have kind of been a carousel of backup goaltenders, I would say. So I've been mostly taking on the good teams myself, right? It's been fairly rare that I've taken on some of the lower seeds. Like if you look at last week's schedule, Fish, who you'd mentioned, Maddie, he faced Bridgeport and he faced Providence and he faced Laval, right? So, and I took basically the rest of our own division. So, which is, we're going to get fishy into bigger games, especially the next 2 weeks moving into playoffs. But I think, we have a top line. Our third line's been decimated by our NHL team taking players up until this week. Sibs, you had mentioned Game Time being our top scorer. He's no longer with us anymore. Okay. Right. He's with the New Jersey Devils now. So we do have two big holes to fill in center. Thankfully, Gally, myself, and Ty have been working all year at building a good TC and call-up eligible TC. So you've seen some moves already this week that have addressed those needs with Brendan Frasso and Dencope coming up. Those two, we're really excited about those two guys. They're very good defense centers, and which is something that we've really needed all year, is just having that guy in the middle of the ice. And, I've been a center at the LG level before. So I definitely appreciate a good center, right? A guy who can get back and play defense. And we're really going to see what they're made of this week against some really top teams for sure.
And
let me ask something. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I just want to ask, because you spoke about how he got taken up to New Jersey. Does it kind of bug you that a team, or does it just make sense to you that a team that is first placed in their division and first placed in the whole conference in general would take up pretty much your best scorer and hope that maybe that'll give them the push for the cup?
This is something that the three of us, like management, have been dealing with the last couple weeks. You know, all things aside, I get what they're doing. If I was an NHL manager, I'd probably do the same thing, right? But I think I would have handled it differently. I would like to have a say in the players that my AHL team gets back, specifically. There was a situation this week where I was on the block to be compensation. So I was very close to being lost by the team this week.
Oh, wow.
And we had to really work with them to, you know, take someone else. We ended up losing Mafia, who is one of our better defensemen. So we have another hole on defense to fill. And it's kind of been like that all year. I don't think many teams can say that they've lost 3 top 2 defensemen before in one season. Like we lost Pezdemic at the start of the year, we lost Kuntak, and we lost Mafia now. And those are all really good players. Like if you put those 3 on one AHL team, you're talking like top half defense easily. Right. So we've had to really work with our TCs, like I said. And, you know, if you ask Gally the same question, he'll definitely tell you a less politically correct answer than I'm going to say. But, you know, it's something that we've struggled with. We have had a lot of adversity this year. But I think we're all on the same page, and the guys who we've had all year have been fantastic about filling in and playing with ECUs and coaching them up, and not just kind of yelling at them every game if they're not super good. And like I said, we've called up a few guys. P. Searles was called up this week. He went 3-0. He played with empty is awesome, and he looked like he should have been in the AHL all year. And I told him that too. I was like, you are amazing. What were we doing with you on a TC, right? So, you know, we've worked on that all year, building a good TC. So, you know, it does suck, but these are the things you need to prepare for as a manager, right? Especially in the AHL.
Yeah, I was going to say, especially in the AHL, because again, you know, the possibility of losing a top player is always looming over any manager. And you know, if you're able to bring in guys that you know who have played well in the CHL, and of course there are plenty of good and you know, maybe hidden talent down there that that a lot of people don't know about. We're just talking about the guys who are playing, who have put up numbers this season that you can look at. There's 1,400 plus TC guys in the CHL. There's so much talent down there that we don't know about, and so I think one of the advantages you can take, Croc, and I think you mentioned it, is, you know, in the AHL, is to try and find out who these guys are, and try and discover them, and when you have a chance, bring them up and make them part of the team. I like the move of Dancope. He's a guy that you know, I got to know a little bit. He played a little bit for us in Tucson in season 3, but I liked him. I liked his game. And, you know, one of those guys, again, even back then in season 3, wish I had more time and more spaces to put him in and use him more. And you've got somebody who's played incredibly well down in the CHL. Not a great season last season in Bridgeport, but again, that's, you know, how much of that is him. He had good numbers. He had a +1, but also put up decent numbers in that season, and was able to at least produce for that team. So, you know, again, you're getting a guy who is definitely AHL caliber in my mind, and you're able to plug him in and do that. That's a big part of what it takes to be successful as an AHL manager.
For sure. And he's a maniac on faceoffs. He is very good at faceoffs, which is something that I think we've really needed, you know, being down centers and things like that. Like anytime you can bring someone in who knows how to take a faceoff, like it's huge. And the guy sat there and called it out against the game versus Rochester. We had a really good game versus Rochester this week, right. The double overtime game. And he was sitting there just calling out where he's going to win faceoffs, and he was pretty much right every time. Right. And it was amazing. Like being a former center myself, right? I know how hard it is to take faceoffs, especially when you're playing against top talent like we were. Never good at faceoffs, which is probably why I switched back to goalie. But he's amazing. Like I was shocked at how good he was at it.
I want to ask you something as a management kind of question. Yeah. You are an AGM, and I know that there are some teams where the owners of those teams are good, and they won't. I don't want to say good or bad as in like personality wise. I just mean like they won't really mess with the team too much. They'll really try to help them out, benefit them, and benefit themselves at the same time. But you being in a situation where you were kind of picked apart by your NHL team, and it didn't seem like they cared too much for you. Is that something that will make you think twice about being management, at least in the AGM? And if you did want to do management again, maybe be more focused towards the NHL so you couldn't be taken away like that?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. Full disclosure, I was added as AGM
Yes, you were.
probably midway through the season. So I wasn't in, picking the team or, bidding or anything like that. Like Gally and Ty approached me after a few tough weeks that we had, and they said, hey, we'd really like to bring you on as AGM. We're hitting the trade deadline soon. You have a lot of knowledge of the league and players. Would you be interested? And I said, like, sure, I got nothing better to do. And we were pushing for a playoff spot. And the one thing I said to myself this year, if I wasn't going to play in the NHL, was I want to make playoffs. I want to be able to, as a goalie, get in there and try and steal a series, right? Or two or three or four, right? So that's something that was a personal goal of mine this year. And, Gally gave me the opportunity to come on and really, work with him and work with Ty and work our way through the trade deadline. In terms of taking management again, I don't know if I'd ever be able to be a GM a lot, like a head GM, right? I think the time suck that it is, not that it's not fun to do or not worth it. I just personally, with my personal time, I don't really have that much time to do that kind of thing. Being an AGM, obviously looking at your NHL team, you're going to want to see who is managing that team. I have a great relationship with Labrat. I'll never say anything bad about Labrat, who's one of the AGMs, or sorry, he might be the GM of the Devils. But you really have to see how it is as a whole, right? Ownership, AGMs, things like that, because you never know, right? And like I said, just having a seat at the table as an AHL manager and being like, okay, we are going to move one of your guys, right? You have no choice in that say, which is totally fine as an AHL manager, but just being able to speak about what we're going to get back on our roster, right? You want something that either is going to fit well positionally or it's an asset that we can move, right? And we weren't really given that opportunity this year, which kind of sucks. But and once again, no hard feelings really, because we're still in a playoff spot. So we're going to work our way through this. And like I said, it was something that we targeted all year in terms of building our TC up.
Right.
Yeah, a big part of what can make you successful. We talk about that, but your division is relatively is very competitive, I think. But the poll this past week says differently. The poll that I posted, of course, was which division is the strongest so far in season 7. And of course, people had their comments to make, but they also had their votes to put in. And the Eastern North had the fewest amount of votes with 5. Western Central easily took this poll with 62 votes, a 64.6% on the voting. Second was Eastern Atlantic, and then Western Pacific close by. But without question, Western Central being seen by the league as the toughest division to play in. And I'll throw this out to Maddie first, and then we'll get Advanced and Croc to weigh in on this one. Maddie, what you've been moved around a few times this season.
That's a nice way of putting it.
Have I?
So
I have a backpack ready. I still have it ready right now. Yeah, I'm scared that they might have another trade coming up, and I know it's finished. Thank God.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You're stuck where you are. So what's your?
I'm stuck where I'm at.
So what's your? You've played. Obviously, we've all played teams in every division so far. How do you feel? Western Central easily the toughest division, or do you have a different opinion on this?
You're asking in terms of who I think is going to make it all the way?
No, I mean just question? The toughest division to play against. Period. From top to bottom.
Well, right now as we speak, obviously Western is a tough division because of their top teams. They took off the bottom seeds are getting pushed aside 100%. Mm-hmm. I mean, when you're looking at the Monsters and the Griffins and the Eagles, they have a long road to go, and I mean they're a lot of points behind. So I guess you can state that it's a tough division to go with because of their top seeds, and in the look of the future of going to the playoffs, they're going to be all the contenders that are going to make it all the way. Mm-hmm. In terms of teams that are even, I would go with probably in a sense that Eastern Division is a tight one. No, sorry. Yeah,
Eastern North or
Atlantic.
Atlantic? Yeah.
Yeah, they're everyone's pretty close there, and it's battles out throughout there, right? I mean, when you're looking at those type of stats, it's hard to get a team that will go all the way and push out forward. Everybody's very close. Everybody's battling for those divisions to those top 4 seeds to get to the playoffs. And like I always think, when the playoff starts, anything can happen. I mean, you can have streaky teams, you can have chemistry that ends up building up after several wins and such things like that. So I mean, Western Central is probably going to be a division that's going to be the toughest to play in, because of the fact when you play against them and you're playing the top seeds, you have less of a chance to. The percentages are not going to be as much to get a W out of it, to get an extra 2 points to go with your stats. But I mean, the other divisions are very close to as well. Like I said, the Eastern Atlantic, Eastern North, everybody's tight, close. So it's all hard divisions to go with. But if you're thinking about the top seeds to play against, definitely the Western.
Advance, what's your feeling on this poll?
I think it really depends on who you normally play, what your role is in the team. If you are on your team, a middle of the pack kind of team, a guy that like usually gets the middle of the pack kind of games, I'd say Eastern Atlantic is probably the hardest division for you. If you are a person that plays all the top teams like myself, Western Central is the hardest one, because you have the top 3 or the top 3. And if you're more of a scrub hunter like my GM, you say Western Pacific because they have the Heat, the Gulls, and Stars, who are the best of all of the bottom 3s of each division. So it kind of depends on who you play, but overall, you kind of look at the top 5, and I'd say in the top 5, Western Central is probably the most difficult division to play against.
Croc, what's your opinion on this?
I think the people who answered the poll have it right. Western Central has been the best division in the LGHL for years, right? I was on the Beast Iowa Wild teams in a few seasons ago.
4?
Season 4 and 5.
Oh, that were good.
Iowa Wild are good, turned to greatness after a down last year. My thoughts on this are really, if you have to say that if I didn't play in this division, we would probably be a division leader, like the Milwaukee Admirals would say, then you probably play in the toughest division. Adversely to that, the Western Pacific, I think they could say if we didn't play the Western Central so much, then we would have more points. I think if you took Bakersfield or San Antonio and you slapped them in one of the Eastern divisions, I think they would do a lot better off, right? So anytime you can say that, you're thinking, yeah, the Western Central is definitely the best division. They have 3 teams that are absolutely unreal. You're probably going to see a Western Conference final in the first round with Manitoba or the Wild facing the Wolves. That's a really, really good matchup to have in the first round of the playoffs. And it's sad that it's almost a shame that one of those teams are going to be eliminated, right? I love the Wolves. Manitoba has obviously proved that they are good. They've won back-to-back Calder Cups, and the Iowa Wild have been amazing this year, just goal scoring. I've played them, I think once already. I played them again. I'm going to be playing them again this week. They've dominated us in a 4-0. A 4-0 loss. Jones was amazing. That's the first time I've ever seen him play, and he took over that game. We had a really good game against the Moose as well. 1-0 loss. They shut things down defensively. You have the best of both worlds in one division. You have the offensive powerhouse, and you have the defensive powerhouse in Manitoba, and then you have the Chicago Wolves who do both things well. I feel bad for the Admirals and the Ice Hogs, because I think that they would definitely be playoff teams, if not top of divisions in any other division. So, I mean, anytime you say that, you're thinking that that's definitely the best division. I think it's a no-brainer.
Let's just talk about one more thing before we get out of here, because the Masters is on, and we all want to go watch that.
We do.
Well, maybe most of us do. There are teams that we know that are technically out of it. At least Providence is. I think Cleveland may be as well. But are there any teams, I mean, that you think we talked a little bit about it when we went over the divisions, but do we think there's some teams that still have a shot in any of these divisions? Is Bridgeport? We talked about them being 7 points out of that last spot, and Hartford being 10. Are they out of it? Are these two teams out of it, or do you think the way that Eastern Atlantic is set up that they still have a chance to get in there? Let me start with Croc, just because we haven't had his input on this division at all.
Yeah, I think it's tough to say. Honestly, I played Wilkes-Barre this week. He went in there thinking it was going to be an easy game, and Toffoli took it to me big time. He grew it. I was going to get Player of the Week for sure this week if I hadn't faced the Penguins. So I think that they're going to make it. I hope they do, or my pride will be shot for the rest of the year. Lehigh Valley, they've taken it to me this year as well. I believe I have a loss to them. The Thunderbirds are really good too. I can't see them dropping out. I really don't see where Bridgeport could win enough to get in, just because I think those teams are going to be very good moving forward, or at least average enough to maintain that point differential.
And in your division as well, obviously you and Syracuse going to be going back and forth a bit, as we talked about. But anybody else? I mean, I kind of said that I thought Utica and Laval really are kind of out of it at this point, and Belleville. Do you feel that way, or are you still a little weary of these guys?
I think the things are pretty much set in the Eastern North. I will say about Utica, they had been the bane of my existence this season. They had destroyed me 7-6 and 8-5 or something like that in 2 games this year, which obviously sucks. And their record, I don't think, is an indication of who they actually are as a team. I'm actually surprised that they went 2 and whatever this week. Because I did think that they were a lot better. They had a good charge there a few weeks ago, and I think it was the same week that you were saying, you watch out for Utica, right? I don't see it, right? But I do respect the hell out of those guys, because they have made my life miserable this season, and that's probably one of the teams that I can say really has made my life miserable.
Let's talk. We already got the viewpoint from Advanced on his own division. We mentioned the Western Central. Rockford may be the one team that has any kind of chance of catching up to Milwaukee, 9 points back. But again, guys, what are we thinking? Does Rockford have a shot still with 2 weeks left to go? 9 points down. Is it insurmountable at this point, Advanced, or do you think with a little luck they have a shot? Because Milwaukee, not necessarily playing great hockey of late, but still have a talented team.
To make the playoffs, it's possible. To do something big while in the playoffs, maybe not as big of a chance. Again, they're kind of in the same situation as the CUDA, where if they do make it, they're at the very bottom of it, and they will play a very good team. And then if you look at the very good teams, you're looking at the Wild, you're looking at the Reign, and your chances of making it past those isn't so great. We have seen in the past that a team like who was it? It was the Checkers last year that somehow made it to the finals, and everyone's kind of how the hell that happened. It can happen sometimes. Sometimes they can pull through. But more likely than not, especially on the West End, you don't see it as often. You'll see the best teams prevail. So they might make the playoffs if they can really push through, and Admirals have some rough times, but they probably won't make it very far after that if they do.
And Matty, I kind of lost track. Where are you playing at this point?
Where am I playing? I'm playing with the Barracuda.
Oh, you're with the Barracuda. So let's talk about the Western Pacific and your team right now, holding on to that 4th spot, but just barely, with Tucson, Texas, San Diego not far behind. I'm assuming you guys are thinking all 3 of those teams are still in this thing.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. I mean, when you're looking at the Roadrunners with having a week that they had last week, it's definitely something to take a look at, make sure that You got to make sure that you're not going to be taking them lightly. I mean, they're coming up at it. They're 1 point behind us, so they're gunning for it. And even Texas, 64. They're right beside us, 64 points. They're very close to it, actually. So in terms of 63, sorry. And they're coming in on it, so it's something to really worry about. I mean, there's a few games left that we're gonna have to make sure to buckle up and make sure that we're gonna keep up getting a few wins. So we can't have games and weeks that we're like having a losing record, or basically averaging a 50 record, right? We're gonna have to push forward, and that's what we're gonna have to be looking at. I mean, the Rain's gonna keep staying on top. The Rampage is probably going to stick in second place. We're going to have to start gunning to go after Bakersfield, and instead of making sure that we just stay steady, we're going to have to start going and firing in all engines and cylinders to go at it, because San Diego still has a chance, Texas still has a chance, the Roadrunner still has a chance. So it's going to be a battle for sure.
Hey, before we get out of here, guys, one more question for all of you. We'll start with Croc. We mentioned it at the top of the show. We'll talk about it now and get your opinion on it. 2 weeks left to go. We talked a little bit about, how much experimenting can you do for the last 2 weeks of the season. I guess if you're really locked into a playoff spot, maybe you can play around with your roster a little bit because you don't care. But with the last 2 weeks left to go, what's your opinion about how teams should be approaching it? Should they be looking to find better chemistry, or should they be locking down their lines at this point?
I think it's really situational, depending on who you are. If you're the Iowa Wild or the Manitoba Moose, you're probably just trying to keep everybody motivated and showing up to games going into the playoffs, right? So that they stay fresh, right? I know when I was in Iowa Wild way back in the day, we were, so far away from having to worry about being not in a playoff spot that, we kind of let things slip the last couple of weeks, and it affected us going into the playoffs. So I think for them, it's just maintaining the status quo. I think if you're a team like the Barracuda or like the Condors, I think it's just get wins at all. Get wins any way you can. If you got to suey some people against some top teams, you do it, right? You got the Reign and the Rampage in your division. You might need to just not give those games away, but put your experimental lines up against them and see how they do. But really leave your top lines to get the games that you need to get, especially when such a close playoff race. For us specifically, I think with the amount of player turnover that we've had due to the call-ups and people quitting, I think we're going to have no choice but have to experiment. I know we do have a top line and a half that we are comfortable with. So it's just going to be moving those other parts around and finding out who plays well with each other. So in that case, we really don't have a choice, right? We got new guys on the team. We got to find out who they play well with or what style they play. In comparison to everyone else. So I just know I'm going to try and go out there and do what I can to keep us ahead of Syracuse, because I would really like to face the Marlies in the first round. I think that's going to be a really good playoff series. And, it's just continuing on from there.
And Advance, I assume you're still of the opinion that, again, much like what Croc just said too, it could be situational, whether or not you might have lost some players because of guys getting called up. And obviously Croc is going to have to deal with that. But other than that, if you're not moving a lot of guys around and you've had lines playing with each other who are successful, do you take a chance on breaking them up at this point in the season to try and make things a little better?
No, that's craziness. If you have lines that are working and you're a team that has made it to the playoffs, you're doing something right, and so you stick at it. If you realize that you're in the playoffs, but you're maybe fourth or fifth, and eventually you will have to play those first, second place teams, changing your lines and breaking up your chemistry is probably not going to help the situation. Right. Just practice more and hope that maybe you can do it. But it is what it is. Good teams are good teams. Good players are good players. And if they're a better team than you, then they're probably going to beat you. But breaking up your lines is absolutely craziness. One thing I would say though is that strategy makes a pretty important part, so that if you're playing a series and you can work out a strategy so that you're your top lines are playing maybe more beneficial games and your second lines are playing more beneficial games, you might be able to sneak it out to a 7th game and then hope for the best. But you know, I wouldn't break it up. That's just craziness.
And as a player, Maddie, what do you how do you feel about it at this point? If you're, you know, your team, as we mentioned, trying to stay in this and make a run and get into the playoffs, I'm assuming as a forward, you wanna keep playing with the same guys you've been playing with.
Well, yeah, absolutely. You want to try to have as much chemistry as possible. You want to have as many practices running in as much as possible, and you want to make sure that everybody's seeing the same type of gameplay that needs to be adapted to each game, right? Every team is going to be a different team to play against, and they're going to have different tactics to go at it. So you got to make sure that you're going to be on point and playing with the same type of group of guys that you're going to gun together and go for the W every time. And you know, it's putting the time and work and making sure that, you know, you take the opportunities that come around, right?
Yep, absolutely. All right, gentlemen, it's you know, 2 more weeks left to go in this one. It feels like it's been a quick season, and best of luck to all of you for the rest of the last couple of weeks, at least for Croc and Maddie, because I'm not sure Advance has much to play for at this point.
Scrub hunters are bitches.
Is that what you're going to do now? You're going to scrub hunt? We'll talk about that
I'm
next
not
week
allowed to scrub hunt. No, dude. My next week is tough. I have all the top teams. Only demon scrub hunts.
Hey, we've been watching PSN hockey on LeagueGaming.com with the AHL This Week show. Maddie, Advance, thank you. Appreciate it. And Croc, thanks for you coming on today and being part of the show. I really appreciate it.
See you later, buddy.
That's it for this week, folks. We'll talk to you next week. Have a good week 7.